We're thinking of things that differentiate vital congregations from those that are struggling. To this point, we've talked about leadership and vision. In this installment, we want to talk about education, which might better be termed as discipleship or faith formation. We tend to assume that everybody knows the stuff we want them to know about the Bible, Christian faith, and perhaps even our particular Christian tradition. We pretend that they've been around the church forever, that they went to Sunday school and youth group and camp, and, well, they know the stories and they know what they mean. The reality is probably just the opposite. My experience has been that the majority of folks only have a passing knowledge of key Bible stories and events. Further, their interpretations of these passages often lack nuance, deep understanding, and context. They often tend to reflect the meanings assigned by popular culture or embraced by uncritical traditions. If you're not providing Christian education, you need to realize that at the very least, you're leaving people to get their theological perspective from the memes on Facebook and the trolls on Twitter. Discipleship, worship, study, prayer, service, and stewardship are things that don't just happen by themselves. They're the result of intentional preparation and planning. And thriving churches appear to have a plan for moving their members toward growth and deeper spiritual expression. They don't leave it to chance. Vital congregations are committed to discipleship, the teaching of the faith. Additionally, they tie the focus of that teaching to their stated mission and vision in order to get the culture of the church into its members. An expectation is set that people who want to be a part of a faith community, and especially its leadership, need to participate in experiences that help them mature in their faith. We can no longer assume that the preaching event alone will give people the breadth and depth of meaning that we want them to have. In fact, participation in worship has dropped to the point where people consider themselves a regular attender if they're present or watching online just once every 6 weeks. It wasn't all that long ago that we considered a regular attender to be in worship on average over 3 times a month. Now, I'm sure some of you listening to this are thinking, well, we used to do that discipleship and faith formation pretty well, and maybe you did and maybe you still do. But I know that I wasn't as good at it as I thought I was. That discovery came one Sunday morning after 13 middle-aged school kids were immersed in the waters of baptism. The pastor's class had lasted 3 months, including the seasons of Lent and Eastertide. And here it was Pentecost Sunday, and our freshly baptized stood in the sanctuary following worship, now in their street clothes, but still dripping wet around the edges. The custom at that congregation was that the leadership would greet them after worship in the sanctuary. The chair of the board would give them a packet of information. You know, the kinds of things middle school kids love to read. The church constitution and bylaws, a directory, and a copy of the board minutes and the church budget. Our financial secretary then proceeded to hand them their very own set of offering envelopes with their own number custom printed neatly in the corner of each box. Well, the light went on for me as I watched the kids fumble with the boxes, a few of them trying to open them like maybe there was a gift inside. I thought we were teaching stewardship and generosity, but maybe not so much, at least not with impact. I can tell you that changed because we became intentional about it. People are not going to get it deep in their bones simply by osmosis. That's like thinking you can enter a mule in the Kentucky Derby just because he hangs out with the thoroughbreds at the stable. Our current situation requires us to imagine new ways to deliver, especially worship and study materials, in hybrid formats that allow for the greatest participation and interaction. It does have to be intentional and thought out. While vital congregations set expectations about education, that same education helps to set expectations about participation. When it comes to teaching stewardship as a spiritual discipline, as one example, they make it clear that the sharing of time, talent, and treasure are a part of what it means to be practicing the faith. Members of the faith community are expected to give. Then it comes as no surprise when we ask people to utilize their skills, offer their time, and share their resources. We've primed the pump. We referred to the NCEP study in an earlier installment of this series. That study also highlighted the practice most associated with increased revenue, teaching about generosity all year long. Indeed, among congregations that teach giving on a weekly basis, which is about 9% of all churches, over 90% reported financial growth. Among those discussing giving monthly, they reported financial growth at 73%. As the frequency diminished, so did the percentage of those reporting financial growth. The study underscores the importance of teaching about generosity as a spiritual practice, and that regular conversations about stewardship result in growth in giving. Now, yes, these are pre-pandemic numbers, but they tell us something very important. Those congregations who are willing to talk about generosity, who don't shy away from teaching it as spiritual discipline, and who don't act embarrassed by asking people to fund the ministry and mission that God has called the church to do, well, they have the resources to do those very things. There are all kinds of ways in which we can teach throughout the course of the year, and broadly. New members classes, confirmation and pastors classes, regular Bible studies, small group gatherings. You might even consider creating a podcast that might either prepare people for the weekly sermon or explore additional concepts that time allotted for the sermon didn't allow you to share. You might just be able to get the important parts of your homily into the ears you otherwise would have missed. I mean, you've already done your homework, and you had to leave some of those good ideas on the cutting room floor. So it might not take as much time as you think for a 10 to 15 minute a week educational podcast. Welcome to the postmodern church. Vital congregations take seriously the notion that we are training people in the faith to take what they know intellectually and spiritually and move it into actionable activity in the world, so that indeed it may be on earth as it is in heaven. That's not an empty or meaningless petition in the Lord's Prayer, at least not if we believe that the Word of God does not return void, but that it actually leads to something. Because our focus is on stewardship, and in particular financial stewardship, we think that offering classes on money management, what we might call personal finance classes, should be done on a regular basis. Consider this: only 1 in 4 people in the United States has a will. Wouldn't it be good once in a while to offer end-of-life issue discussions related to health care, end-of-life directives, estate planning? What people don't realize is that their state has a will for them. It just may not be the way in which they want their children or their assets to be cared for and managed in their death. So we suggest you teach stewardship in pastor's class, and especially in new members classes. I know I used to be a little apprehensive about laying expectations on people when they were getting ready to join the church. I didn't want to scare them away. But actually, studies have discovered that that's the time folks are most receptive and most willing to listen to what the expectations are about becoming a part of the faith community. We should take good advantage of that. So teach Sabbath, recycling, faith sharing, self-care, and all the other aspects of holistic stewardship, and do it throughout the year. Do regular preaching because it makes a difference. Don't wait just for those 3 weeks in October right before you're seeking commitments. If people really are only engaging in worship once every 5 or 6 weeks, they're likely to miss all the important things you have to say. So spread the conversation out. Give people time to think about it and to learn what a difference their giving makes. Let them practice growing in their generosity before they feel they have to make a commitment to do so. After all, most of us dated and got engaged before we got married. So take every opportunity to teach. That's what vital congregations have in common. We've explored leadership, and vision, and education. In our next session, we'll talk about communication. For the Center for Faith and Giving, I'm Bruce Barkauer. Does your congregation need help to reach its generosity potential? Contact us for more information about Generosity Plus, consulting and coaching for your congregation in your context.